Legion of Farron is a caravan of undead, sworn by wolf's blood to contain the abyss. The Legion will bury a kingdom at the first sign of exposure. Joyous bunch, really. Gaining admission to the Legion is a matter of some ceremony. Inside their keep, snuffing out the flames of 3 altars opens the door to the wolf blood. Even accursed undead want to believe they're special, it seems. I pity the sorry souls.
Iron Mask of the Watchdogs of Farron's Keep. After the Legion's Watchers became Lords of Cinder, the wolf blood dried up, and Farron was consumed by a festering wood. Within the wood, an emaciated old wolf commands Watchdogs to defend the sanctity of sleeping warriors. Wolf's Blood Swordgrass, a leaf signifying a duty fulfilled by the Watchdogs of Farron. Long ago, the swordgrass leaf quietly identified members of the Undead Legion. In the rotted forest rest the spirits of warriors past. Their acceptance of the gratitude towards their guardians is expressed eloquently by the humble leaf. But who are the Abyss Watchers really? What is their purpose? What have they done to deserve so much respect and infamy? As the name implies, the Undead Legion of Farron, or the Abyss Watchers, was made up of countless undead, each of which gained access by extinguishing the fires at 3 altars, one of the 4 kings, one of the Bed of Chaos, and one of Nida. Then, finally joining the ranks of the Legion by partaking in the Wolf's Blood. Now, Wolf's Blood quite literally means the blood of the old wolf of Farron Keep, and even in the arena where you fight the Abyss Watchers, there is a goblet, presumably where this wolf's blood was held. We learn more about Wolf's Blood through the Farron Ring, a ring given to the Undead Legion of Farron. The Abyss Watchers, for their hunting, required a sword technique that went beyond any existing art. Wolf's Blood provided just that, and this ring further extends the effect. With the power of Wolf's Blood, a nameless undead army could become more than the sum of its parts. The Great Sword of the Abyss Watchers, which is atypically paired with an unusual dagger. The dagger is utilized as a wedge in the left hand while the Great Sword is held in the right, a unique technique that was synonymous with the Undead Legion, confounds foes in a manner of wolves hunting prey. We find out more about the Abyss Watchers from the armor they wear. These undead warriors vowed to partake of wolf blood. They acted in the dark, seeking out any sign of the Abyss, fighting a constant war with its abomination. This pointed steel helm was a distinct symbol of the Legion, shirked as a sinister omen by the masses. When defeated, they dropped Soul of the Blood of the Wolf. It reads that the blood was spread amongst the Abyss Watchers, and their souls are one with the soul of the Wolf Blood Master. This is referring to a character most of you are familiar with, Artorius the Abyss Walker. One of Gwyn's 4 knights, a warrior with an unbendable will of steel and unmatched skill with a greatsword. His symbol was that of the wolf, most famously known for making a covenant with the beast of the abyss, allowing him to traverse the very abyss itself. In Dark Souls 1, we see but a husk of the hero's former self, defeated and completely controlled by the dark. Using the Abyss Watcher's soul, you can transpose Artorius' sword. Great sword of a knight tainted by the dark of the abyss, and master of the wolf's blood of Farron. The Wolf Knight was the first Abyss Watcher, and his sword is more punishing against creations of the abyss. To say Artorius was the first Abyss Watcher doesn't mean that he came back to life and formed the Undead Legion of Farron, but rather the Abyss Watchers greatly admired him and everything he stood for, so much so that they would adopt his ideals and ferocity in battle. But that isn't all, because Artorius did leave something behind, and that is the blood of the wolf. The details are vague, but we can learn a little bit more from his armor. Wolf Knight armor. a vanquished knight left behind only wolf's blood and his legacy of duty. The undead Legion of Farron was formed to bear his torch, and the armor of these Abyss Watchers suggests their own eventual end. As other people have pointed out, if you look closely at the Abyss Watchers' armor, you can see black tendrils creeping up their cape and even parts of their helmet. This is foreshadowing their eventual demise, but the story doesn't end there. When we fight the Abyss Watchers, they don't seem to be completely taken over by the Abyss. They also don't seem to have control either. But besides the subtle hints in their armor, there is actually no signs of the Abyss corruption whatsoever. I believe the reason for their madness stems from something else. One thing that people seem to forget quite easily is that the Abyss Watchers are not one sole entity. It's true that each of them share wolf's blood, but we need to remember that their ranks are made up of countless undead. I believe what was one of the Abyss Watchers' greatest strengths actually ends up becoming their downfall. The Abyss Watchers are one of the Lords of Cinder, which means in a previous age they linked the fire. What makes them unique as far as a Lord of Cinder goes is that they didn't link the fire alone. As a matter of fact, this is the first instance in the whole Souls series that more than one person was able to link the fire. I believe this is clear by examining the cinders that these Abyss Watchers leave behind. The Watchers of the Abyss swore upon their shared wolf's blood, which also served as their mandate as lords. Interestingly enough, you'll notice that when you finally go to place their cinders on their throne, you'll find that their cinders are made up of not one skull but multiple, further pushing that idea that they did this as a whole. The way the Age of Fire is continued is when the Chosen uses their own body as kindling for the first flame. You collect more souls, making your soul more powerful, and the more powerful your soul is, the longer the fire will last. The strength of the Abyss Watchers was spread throughout their ranks, therefore they all had to burn to link the fire. All undead eventually hollow, and the Legion is no exception. The various Lords of Cinder turned their back on their thrones for their own selfish reasons, but for the Abyss Watchers it seems linking the fire has taken a toll on their bodies and minds. Even in their crazed state of attacking anything that moves, including themselves, they still manage to stand their post of watching over the Abyss. These remnants of the Abyss can be found within the Abyss Watchers themselves and the catacombs of Karthus that they guard over. We learn from the rings of their warriors that Karthus was a sand kingdom, and the sword technique of Karthus allows for fluid movement with curved swords. Masters of the technique are said to dazzle their opponents by moving as weightlessly as a grain of sand. They live for their High Lord Wolnir, conqueror of most kingdoms known to their people. But their swordsmen were also talented pyromancers. Karthus swordsmen attached great value to victory, and would not shun the use of such pyromancies, for where's the honor in death and scoured bones? Karthus was a kingdom of conquerors after all, victory being their way of life. There are a few other pyromancies you can read to give you a better understanding of these Karthus warriors, but for the sake of the video I'm just going to skip them. Pause it if you want to read it. At the end of the catacombs, we find this door, and I might be crazy when I say this, but it reminds me of the stone door in Farron Keep. It doesn't have the same inscription on it, but maybe the acid ate away at the surface? I don't know. Anyway, behind the door, we see this room with a skull goblet laid on an altar. Our character, like any sane individual, walks up and touches the skull goblet, and when he does, black abyss starts to pour out of it, and it eventually gets to the point where it consumes the room, and your character seems to actually be pulled into a part of the abyss. We find ourselves in this pitch black area with only an item in the far distance, and that item is the Grave Warden Pyromancy Tome. A Pyromancy Tome of the Grave Warden. High Lord Wolnir of Karthus succumbed to the abyss, but the Pyromancer later became a Grave Warden and discovered the Black Flame. When we get close to this item, we're attacked by High Lord Wolnir, or at least what he became after he succumbed to the abyss. The crown Wolnir wears says once upon a time such things were bequeathed judiciously to each of the rightful lords, until Wolnir brought them to their knees and ground their crowns to dust. Then the crowns became one, and Wolnir the One High Lord. When Wolnir fell to the abyss, he was gripped by the fear of darkness, and pleaded to the gods for the first time. This holy sword, together with 3 armlets stripped from the corpses of clerics, gave him some semblance of comfort. Lord Wolnir of Carthus sentenced countless souls to gruesome deaths, keen to outlive them all. And it makes sense if you think about it that Carthus's ideals are best reflected in its very own leader. In Carthus, there is no honor in death. Honor is reserved for the victorious, the living. The conqueror of many kingdoms' greatest fear is defeat. Much like the Carthus warriors themselves, victory at any cost, even if that cost is luring countless souls to their slaughter. But Wolnir's thirst for victory is actually what led him to fall so far. The spell Black Serpent tells us pyromancy discovered from the abyss by High Lord Wolnir that inspired the black arts of the Grave Wardens. Be it sorcery or pyromancy, all techniques that infringe on humanity lead to the same place. That is to say, they all seek a will of their own. Wolnir's undoing is his own. Wolnir sought strength that would ensure him victory, and he found that strength in the abyss. A power he couldn't control that eventually consumed him, and his entire kingdom. If you look at Wolnir closely, you can actually see that he's decorated himself with countless skulls. These are presumably the countless warriors that he's led to their own demise. For although he succumbed to the abyss, it appears in the end he was able to hold off the abyss with the 3 armlets and the sword he got from fallen clerics. I'm willing to bet that if Wolnir didn't consume the humanity or souls from his victims, he would have been consumed himself by the dark long ago. We finally defeat Wolnir by destroying the 3 bracelets, and as a lot of people have noted, it actually appears that Wolnir is dragged into the abyss kicking and screaming. I think one thing to take away from this is, it doesn't really seem like we won the battle here. We defeated Wolnir, but it seems that in the end the abyss claimed him. It's interesting that the goblet that sucked us into the abyss is kind of just left alone after we defeat Wolnir as if nothing happened. In the end, we see that the Abyss Watchers are actually kind of close to the Abyss, and you can interpret this how you want, whether you want to believe that they were tainted by High Lord Wolnir and his Black Flame, or maybe they were tainted by hunting down the Abyss over the years. One thing that still bothers me that I've noticed is right above the door that opens after you beat High Lord Wolnir, there's this symbol, and it kind of looks like an upside down tree, and I have no idea what this means. If you have any ideas, leave them in the comments, because I'm interested to see what some people come up with. The Abyss Watchers dedicated their lives to eradicating the Abyss, and I don't know if this ever occurred to you, but maybe the reason they're called the Watchers of the Abyss and not the Hunters or the Slayers is because there is no defeating the Abyss. Light and dark are 2 sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. The flame will always cast a shadow. Yet despite victory never being truly obtainable, the Abyss Watchers still took up arms against the spreading darkness. Time and time again they would face death and despair, for that was the fate of those who would challenge the Abyss. Even when their time passed and their duties fulfilled, they stood with broken bodies that they no longer had control over, and watched over the encroaching darkness. For that was the legacy of the blood of the wolf. Thanks for watching. I tried taking all the feedback I got from the previous lore video to hopefully improve this one, so let me know what you think. I've already got plans for future lore videos, so make sure you share and subscribe so you don't miss any. Also, in the meantime, check out my other videos, and drop a like and comment. Alright, thanks, bye.